Hello artists, what we're going to focus on today is specifically working with Fauvism. And just to talk a little bit about what exactly Fauvism is, typically what we see in these works when we look at them, these examples that are up on the screen, we see really vivid and bold colors that sometimes appear unrealistic to the human eye. So if we were to look out at some of these scenes, traditionally they don't have these really vibrant oranges, vibrant, red tones and all of these tones on the color wheel. Sometimes it's thought of that these artists use the paint almost directly out of the tube. So you can see that the color is really bold, it's saturated, it's bright. The other thing that I see a lot of use of is the use of complementary colors within Fauvist work. So these artists, like I said, they were not afraid to really experiment with these colors. And traditionally we see a lot of contrast in the work, these really bright and vibrant colors against these really deep but still very bold colors. So like in this one we see the really bright orange tones against the really blue tones. Now if we think about complementary color schemes, those colors are directly across from each other on the color wheel. One is traditionally a warm color and one is a cool color. So when you mix, have a cool with a warm color, you have this really high contrast. One's really bright in comparison to the other when I look at complementary colors used within these paintings. So again, what I oftentimes do is tell students to really be expressive with color within this section. Don't be afraid to try really bold choices. And I might have you guys start with just choosing a complementary color scheme. So yellow and purple would be an example of complementary colors that you could use together. Blue and orange are straight across from each other. You could use that complementary color pair. And then red and green are also right across from each other. So again, they're really high contrast between the two colors there. So if you use those in a painting together, you just get this really, really bold look to it. It's interesting because these artists were oftentimes super open-minded for the time. So what they were doing was really bold and kind of strayed away from what you would usually see in traditional art. And some people looking at the pieces and critics were thinking to themselves, what are these people doing? They're sometimes using these completely extreme, bold, and out of the ordinary colors, but really they made a huge impact on the art world and just being more expressive and freer and more spontaneous with the colors chosen for a piece. Kind of abstract color in a way, where it strays away from that realism. What might this look like in your art pieces? I just put up a few examples of some more contemporary and modern pieces that we see really bright and bold colors within. So we see the orange and blue color schemes. We see the red and green up against each other. We see blue and orange in this one. Some red, blue, and orange in here. Just again, really bright and bold colors. So as a start, choose which complementary color pair you may want to work with. I am specifically going to show you yellow and purple is the pair that I am going to choose. And what I thought would be a really good way to include this using colored pencil, traditionally I'd have you try this with paint, but we're going to use colored pencil, is the lighter color you can use for your highlights and the darker color you can use for your shadows. So my brighter color is the yellow, my darker color will be the purple, which I'll use for some of my shading within my piece. So if I go back over to the drawing board here and show you my example, my Fauvism section is going to be right in here. And what I'm going to do is actually, again, look at my picture, or if you have that object sitting right in front of you, you can do that. What I'm going to do is focus on using my purple for all of the shaded areas and then using my brighter yellow for all of the brighter areas. So what I did is I chose a few different shades of purple. I've got a deep violet and a lighter violet and then a yellow, so that I can have a little bit of fun experimenting with those shadows instead of doing just all the dark purple, having some lighter areas too. And what I'm going to do is start with my darkest version of the color, which is my deep violet, and I am going to start off with the darkest parts of this palette and drawing those in. So I think my darkest part is going to be the paint and then also the shadow above the paint in this little insert here. And what I'm going to do is, again, translate where do I see the darker areas and where do I see the lighter areas. And on here, I have these little highlights in the paint that I want to consider. So I'm just going to use that really dark purple for my shadows. And then towards the outside of the paint, what I might do is, for these little highlights, if I want to do a highlight, I might just do that in yellow instead of just white. So I'm using that complementary color scheme to add color and shading. So I'll use that bright yellow in there instead. Around the paints is kind of like a white highlight that also gets a little bit darker along the outside. So what I might do is use my yellow. My pencil just broke on me here. Use that bright yellow to draw in where the highlights are first. So along this ridge, I see the inside of this white ridge is brighter, so I'm going to do yellow in that area. And then towards the outside, I have a darker shadow along that area where I am going to maybe use my more medium purple to do a shadow. I can blend those together if I want. So again, any medium tones, I'm going to use my light purple, and then any super dark tones, I'm going to use my deep violet, and any super bright areas or white areas will be in the yellow. And then around here I have a really deep shadow down in this slot, so I'm going to do a dark purple right in that section. And then I am just going to emphasize this line here with the purple. What I have to do is kind of draw in, and it looks like I grabbed the wrong watercolor palette, but what I'm going to do is just invent this section right in here, just paying attention to the shadows. My other palette didn't have this little insert on the top, or this little hanging piece here, so I just have to exclude that from my bottom drawing. If I want to do kind of a drop shadow around the actual object, I may use my lighter purple for that. So again, I'm still inside the palette here, finishing that up. And then my drop shadow around the object is going to be my medium purple, because again we're going to have these little shadows going around our object, so I'm going to use that medium tone. And starting at the watercolor palette, move out towards the outside and lighten up the pressure of the colored pencil, and then put a little more pressure towards the object to make that darker. Remember, you can use any of the complementary color pairs. I'm using purple and yellow. You can use red and green, you can use orange and blue. If you're working with orange and blue, orange will be your lighter tones, blue would be your darker tones. If you're working with red and green, red and pink would probably be your lighter tones, and green would be your darker tones. Again, paying attention to where the shadows are, so I have a deep dark shadow right underneath the palette here, so I'm going to emphasize that a little bit. Draw in the outline of this, maybe have my dark purple darken that shadow around the palette here, just on the inside a little bit. And then I have all of these lines that are kind of like a medium gray, so I'm going to use my medium and lighter purple to go in and add the little ridges on the inside of the palette. And I have a shadow right in here where this piece is, so I'm going to darken that a little bit, just lightly add that shadow in there. There's going to be a little bit of a shadow on the ridge here. And this line down here gets a little bit darker than the top one. Just like that. And what I can do is, for the really bright areas, I can go in and add yellow for any areas that are white. So this is going to kind of deviate from using the brightest white for your highlights. I'm instead going to use yellow for my highlights. So this is all a highlight, like the white part of my palette, so I'm going to go in and just add that now. And this will be really abstract use of color. We're obviously deviating completely away from realism here. We're still doing, shading, but we're using colors that are just out of this world and definitely not realistic to that object. And then what I could even do is the entire background that's white here, I could still do that in yellow as well. I could just add a tint of yellow just really lightly all the way around so that I don't have the white of my paper also. Then as I get over to my artist palette here, again I'm going to do another drop shadow around that object, so I'll have the outside of that object like a purple tone. Instead of, again, using the gray or the black, we're just using that darker color for our shadows. I kind of like the look of the dark purple over the medium, so I'm going to just have that get lighter to do the shadow. Brighten up this yellow in here a little bit. It's looking pretty cool. And I can have my yellow blend into white in this section since there's not really a whole lot going on here. So I can just lighten that up and leave part of my background the white of the paper. Maybe just around my objects have that get brighter as if there's a shadow onto the table. Then when I go in to do the shadows of my palette, again I'm paying attention to where those shadows are. This ridge here is the brightest part of my palette, so I'm going to leave that white for now and then add little shadows in here. So you got to pay attention to where those dark gray or black tones are, just like you would for a value drawing with just black and white. So you need to be looking at that object while you are drawing again, as always. So it's just like shading with your regular drawing pencil, except using the dark purple or your dark color instead. Adjusting the pressure that you're putting down on the colored pencil as you go. If you want to get lighter, just lighten up the pencil layers a little bit. And apply a little bit more pressure where you want it to get darker. Nice thing is you all have done the realism part where you use realistic color with colored pencils, so this shouldn't be too far away from what you've already done. Then what I can do is, since this part of my palette is the brightest white, I might just add a light layer of yellow, nothing too bright here, and then on the inside where the paint goes, that gets a little bit darker, so I might darken this yellow on the inside here, just like that, to show that there's a little bit more of a shadow in here. Get in there. And I'm not sure I like this light medium purple in here. I might go in and darken it a little bit for my drop shadows with the dark violet. So shadows aren't quite dark enough. No. Not enjoying the medium purple, so I'm going to go in and darken those all the way around every object. And you may kind of start asking yourself, do you have to stick with just a complementary color scheme like yellow and purple, or can I deviate and do some other bright colors mixed in there? That would be okay. Like, let's say I wanted to add some blue tones to my purple, that could be really cool, or some other super bright colors in there. I would start this for a base, and then if you feel like there's other colors you might want to add, absolutely do that. I think that would be pretty cool for your Fauvism section, because if you think about Fauvism, they don't only use, the complementary colors. They traditionally use all sorts of colors within their work. This is always a good start, though. And if we look back, it's looking pretty cool. I just have to finish up with my paintbrush here. If you look back at some of the examples of Fauvism, you see, the blue and the orange complementary color scheme. You see the purple against the green. But like I said, they use other colors in here, so don't be afraid to try some new things with that. But start with this and then go from there. If you have any questions, always feel free to ask me. Think about what color scheme you feel would work best with your art piece. For those of you who are doing more of a nature scene, you might stick with kind of your more green and red tones, or like your blue and your orange tones. Really up to you how you go about that, but you'll need at least 2 colored pencils with the complementary color pair, and if you wanted to do different shades of those colors, you could include some. So if I chose yellow and purple, I could find some other golden yellow tones to mix in here and some different shades of purple as well.